Welcome to the Forward Slash, where we lean into the future of IT. I am Aaron Chesney, your host, with my beautiful co-host, James Carman, who is sporting the wet look today. And for the first time ever, a live studio audience. All right, quiet down, you bunch of misfits. All right, so today we have Mary with us. You gonna try to say her last name? I might try it here. Let's try it. Gregleski?
Close enough. Gregleski. That's good.
It's a good Polish name.
Yes.
I do like that.
That's right.
Believe it or not, Chesney is Polish. It's just not one of the rare non-ski
Polish names.
Yeah, we stay at the bottom of the mountain. That was a freebie.
Yeah, that's wow.
So a little bit about Mary. Well, the first bullet point on her intro is currently she is the AI practice lead at Callibrity. She previously was a developer developer advocate at IBM and also at DataStax. She's been a Java champion since 2021. Congratulations on your championship win. Discovered her passion in developer and customer advocacy. She's majored in math and computer science years ago with a crying and laughing emoji. I like that. Graduated just in time, right around the birth of the web, World Wide Web, the WWW. I almost said WWF. In the early 90s, which would match with the WWF.
What are you going to do, brother?
I don't know, but I'm going to have to look up which came first, the WWF or the WWW. Most recently, she was serviced companies of various sizes such as IBM, U.S. Cellular, Bank of America, Chicago Mercantile Exchange, in topic areas that include Java, GenAI, streaming systems, open source, cloud and distributed messaging systems, I'm sure many others. An active tech community leader outside her day job, president of the Chicago Java Users Group, CJUG for short, and Chicago chapter co-lead for AI Camp.
That's what I love doing this podcast with you so much, because your preparation and your attention to detail is just, it's just.
You know how long it took me to memorize all that?
I would have probably just read it.
My rap sheet is almost not that long.
Almost not that long.
So welcome, Mary.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, James.
No, thank you.
Oh.
Thank you for being here with this lovely audience that we have joining us today.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I think this is our whole listener base in the room.
Right. We invited all of our listeners to come to join us live in the audience today. Yeah. So it's really exciting for me. It's good times.
Good times. Jumping right into things, why don't you tell us a little bit about dev relations and advocacy and what that means and how you got into it?
Yeah. So developer advocacy, for those of you who are not familiar, and kind of became the thing, like I'd say since like 2016, 17. It's actually, well, what you find is that, first of all, they get interpreted differently by different companies, but I'd say most of them seem to be, kind of viewing that as a function of within marketing department, and especially for product companies. So like if you're selling products, you want to be able to evangelize and talk about it and all of these things. And so as advocates too, is that you were hired to essentially promote what you have, your product. And then, sometimes too, for example, like companies such as like Docker that works with a whole variety of things, you can actually talk about the functionality, how you can support a different software running in Docker and all of these things. So in other words, it's a job function in which you're going out to educate your audience and doing outreach work and spread the words and also raise the level of awareness, kind of pretty much a marketing function. But two is that I think it's also important, equally important too, is to build up a community around it as well, user community. thing. And then it's not only through speaking engagements, but it can be writing blog articles or running workshops and all these kind of things, essentially raising level of awareness about your product. And that's what it has been. But then it's interesting, I have to say, then I got invited to explore opportunities within Callibrity, which is not a product-based company, it's consulting. So, and I remember I actually asked James, I said, well, you have advocacy in a consulting firm, because I never heard of it as much. But he was saying that, well, it's likewise, too, you want to be able to raise awareness of your company through the services that you provide. So, yeah, so it's kind of same thing as promoting.
And not only that, we also advocate for certain technologies and in the proper use of them as well as consultants as well, and kind of help guide companies into, yes, if you use this suite of products, you're going to see these kind of X, Y, and Z benefits and that kind of thing, and you should maybe avoid these kind of technologies for your space for the same reason. And I imagine you handed out lots of cool geek stickers too, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yes, yeah, that's true. Yeah, but yeah, essentially that's what it is. I think the kind of I do have to say the fringe benefits. If you like to travel, as much as I do, I really like it. And so you speak at conferences, but of course you have to be, you have to be responsible for applying to conferences. But then once you're known, then people will also come and invite you to speak as well, that type of thing. So it's nice. It's sort of an extrovert side for the engineers, yeah, basically. Because I was an engineer before for over 20 years, and I didn't know about this. And until I tried it, then I realized, oh, this is kind of nice, because it's about time I wanted to go out and reach out, not just working as an engineer. You're also going and share the news, good news, kind of in some sense, yeah.
So were you always kind of extroverted anyways, speaking up in front of groups of people and presenting?
Interestingly, I have to say, when I never thought, it was funny, I never thought I would become an advocate. But I think certainly, I'd say I have, and I think for most people too, it's not black and white. It's not like you're completely 100% introvert or 100% extrovert. A lot of us are probably a mixture. So I certainly have that introvert side of me, but it appears as the dominant trait for me in the beginning. I was more shy and didn't want to speak. And then I remember too, also when I first came out, graduated and started working, and mostly men, I do have to say. And then happens that they are all very nice people, but also very much to themselves. So I didn't really have the influence or the role model within me. So I thought that's what it is. And plus I grew up with a very nerdy, geeky brother who was very annoying, who actually was saying that, no, girl, I remember I actually went to him. I still remember to this day, I couldn't figure out some math stuff. I think I was in, 5th grade or something, and he's 3 years older. So in 7th grade equivalent, and 7th or 8th grade, and then he was like, no, I'm not going to tell you because girls can't figure it out. I remember I was so mad. Yeah, and I was like, no. Yeah, and I was like, okay, well, but in some ways too, it's weird. Then you internalize it. Maybe it really is true. Girls couldn't do it as well as guys would be, right? So I was kind of under that kind of shadow. But anyway, to go back to your original question, I never thought I would. And so when I first started working, I was also an IT company or IT department of actually Monsanto chemical company. That was my real first job. And in the basement and a chemical plant. And so they are mostly men, but there are a few women, but they were also doing more of the interacting with customers, internal customers. And then they were all just not talking too much and something. And I just thought that's the way it was. And I never thought of it. But then it was funny too, as I get older, and then I realized, something is missing, right? It's just I like this work, but it's kind of something's missing. And then because my daughter grew up too, and then she started going, to college and all that, and so I thought, let me join user group. And naturally, I was working with Java, so joined the Java users group in Chicago, and started going, and I really found out I really enjoy it. So I was going like crazy, because too at the time I was working in downtown Chicago, so I have to take the train in and out. And then I thought, okay, let me. And the nice thing is that going to user group, you get free dinner, right? So you get pizzas, and so it's it's nice, and you talk with people, you get free dinner. So I the more I did it, I really like it. And without knowing, then IBM happened like 2018, I remember. They were like, oh, looking for developer advocates. And then even I was trying to figure out what advocates do. And then I thought, okay, let me try it. And I started reading the job description. Oh, user group, community. I said, oh, I like that. That's what I'm doing now with user group. Oh, not only, actually, before that, I should say, the Java users group, at that time, the organizers came to me and said, you're coming so much, why don't you help? It's all volunteer work. So I said, okay, sure, let me start helping. And so that naturally led to IBM looking for people and then reaching out to Chicago. That seems to be a pretty popular, well-known user group for Java. So I thought, oh, let me try it, and then it worked out. So then that's how I started doing. And then I realized, oh, I got to start actually going to speak too. That was another thing. I mean, I started talking too, but just lightning talks, all these things. And then being a full-time professional person, I have to start talking. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to start preparing all my talks. And they asked me to talk about streaming and reactive systems. And I have to start studying and doing all that. But I was thinking, I better do it now. I can't like make a fun of myself. And I think also, too, then I was in a group, the Java Developer Advocacy Group at IBM at the time was 4 of us. And 3 other guys, they were constantly traveling. One of the guys based in Germany, he would be always somewhere. I mean, you talk about me being crazy, he was on all the time traveling. So it just kind of became the thing. And I think, it's funny. I think it brought out that extrovert side of me that I never thought I had. So, yeah, so I think that's how I kind of converted to doing advocacy.
Yeah, I did a... it was something that was provided by the company. I think it was over several weeks, and it was based on the Myers-Briggs personality profile things. And the way they did it, they actually graded you in the different areas. And one of those is introvert, extrovert, and so you had like a percentage. And depending on how far you swung, either way, she called it you're either a raging extrovert or a raging introvert, depending on how much. And I was actually paired with a raging introvert, and I was a raging extrovert. So we challenged each other, to drift more towards the middle a little bit more, because you're absolutely right. There is that bit of introvert in all of us and extrovert in all of us, but no surprise, I'm extroverted.
So what was the first talk you gave where you're kind of standing up in front of the crowd and you're like, okay, this is something, like this is a big crowd, like this is a whole new world for me? What was the first one like that for you?
Yeah, good question. Now I think back, I think it was actually in Ukraine, but I did some small things. Oh, although that was Java 1, but that was something else, I forgot. Yeah, and then, but anyway, for international, it was in Ukraine, and but the crowd wasn't too big, so it was still scary, but it sort of felt more like a meetup group. And at the time, we had about 60 or 70 people coming to meetup group, so that was about the size. And again, I was told I joined the Java users group, the Java advocacy team at IBM, and then some folks are talking about Spring. There's one guy talking about more Quarkus, or at the time, more with the enterprise microservices, and then the other guy talking about something else, and they said, oh, can you talk about streaming and reactive? So I started talking about reactive systems, and that was my initial thing. Yeah. But I felt like, too, at that time was a little scary because reactive streaming is a bit more abstract than the other thing, and I worked a little bit with it, so I had to come up really quickly, like try to do some samples and being able to put together a talk, like that. But it was scary, I think, in the beginning. And I was getting some feedback from another IBM person. I call her IBM mom. She's now at Red Hat, but anyway, she's funny. She's very honest. She said, Mary, you talk too fast, like that. It was really funny. But I think it's just that over time I started, because too is that I started talking so much that I was being forced to practice all the time, and then in reality, in real production. So I think it becomes more natural to me now to try to talk. And also, interestingly, English is not even my first language, but it became my first language now. Yeah, so yeah.
You would never know it. You do speak English
That's
very
right.
well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Better than you.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
But I
Probably
think,
better than me too.
yeah, but I think I still have some accents that certain words maybe I still can't figure out exactly, but I still have those kind of stutter moments. Yeah, my daughter makes fun of me too, but yeah.
Kids can be great, can't they?
I know, exactly, yeah. It's like I'm gonna embarrass you.
That was being facetious.
Oh, okay.
You don't speak English very well.
Yeah,
I used a
right.
big word, Aaron, like facetious. So,
Okay.
streaming and stuff like that. That
Yeah.
doesn't seem to be. I mean, it's big in areas, but it doesn't seem to have caught on. Like I don't know, maybe did it fall flat? Like what happened with the whole streaming and that reactive systems and that sort of stuff?
That's
Tell me a bit about it.
actually a very good question. And as you know, right now, Java 23, or even before that, right, virtual threads coming out. And in fact, that's what people were saying. When it first came out, was saying that virtual threads going to wipe out reactive systems and streaming, all these things too. But of course, it won't. But anyway, going back to streaming, we're talking about Java streaming and data streaming, asynchronous processing. I think it can mean a variety of things, but primarily when we think of streaming, it's more about Kafka too. So it is definitely being used, because I think even when I was evangelizing about it, I realized it's a more natural form of processing, like to do streaming, because it's asynchronous. It's not about blocking. This is, like all these things. So I think it is being used. It's not completely wiped out, I don't think. And also, too, as I am talking to a lot of people, they are saying that, we're using Kafka most of the time, right? And they're maybe using RabbitMQ. Those things kind of streaming, not quite exactly. So Kafka, I think it is still heavily being used, but just not talk so much. And also, I have also thought too, is because it's more of a lower level infrastructural type of thing that people just don't talk about. It's like you're trying to show your house. You usually say, this is my living room, all of these things. You won't be saying that those are the pipes in my house or like that. So I feel it's because of that, the function of streaming tend to be more of an infrastructural thing, that you must have, and it must be well designed. But as a result, if you put in very good pipes, then no need to worry about it. But if it's only when things go wrong, then you kind of talk more about it. Maybe that's why. That's what I think.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking more on the reactive side. That doesn't seem to be as popular as everybody thought it was going to be. It just seems like the coding patterns are much more complex, right? It's just you have to think much more and just a lot more code involved to write reactive systems, it seems like. I mean, everybody's tried with frameworks and everything, but I don't know. It just it takes a different brain, I think, for that.
I totally agree with you. Yeah, that's right. Good question.
I don't have that brain.
You don't have that brain? Okay. Well,
No, I was following the streaming thing because I always thought of like the Java streams is kind of like that. It was kind of really close to the code in how you're like processing behind the scenes, but not necessarily like right up in your face. It's not the thing you want to demo, right?
That's right.
It's not gonna present well to a customer.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like, look, and we're streaming this in, and it's coming in live, and it's like, to what? So
obviously, live things aren't very impressive. We haven't had any sort of hoots and hurrahs from our audience today. They're all on their phones and computers doing other things.
Which is like most of our listeners.
Well, that's probably fair. That's probably fair.
Any questions from the audience for Mary?
No questions? Ryan, I'm sure you have one.
I thank you, longtime listener,
First time caller.
Thank
you, caller.
What's the best way for a beginner to start with generative AI?
Yeah, I think to me, it's AI is not. It's not going to take away what we're doing, right? Like, say we're already doing coding. Let's say most of us we're doing coding. You need to have data, parse it and filter all of these things, transform, and all of these input output. So you're not going to take away. But then for generative AI, I think definitely you want to start reading up on it too, because to me, generative AI is like a branch of AI and machine learning. And it deals with more of the generative side. And before that, it's more predictive AI. That's actually not making use of natural language processing before, not as much, or at least. And then dealing more with predictive. You're predicting, based on some large data set, you train it, and then you also generate results, but also it's more predictive, and also like making use of statistical model, more of that, and more of a timed type of value. But like generative AI is dealing now, we see that you can use natural language and talking. And also, too, you have to understand that like, with generative AI, we're dealing with different modes of data. There's text, and that's what it came out of, too, ChatGPT, with the text, with the spoken, and you ask, and it comes back with answers and typing out all the strings or paragraphs of data. But then also there's images, as we know, and videos and code, and generates code and all of these. So we have to understand the different modes that it can deal with: text to image, image to text, video, 3D, all of these things too. So I think definitely to kind of long answers to your question is, start also studying to some of these theory behind and understand AI and ML. It already existed before GenAI, and we need to understand too, the models are still being trained, supervised training and supervised training, all of these things. So it's still kind of good to understand the traditional machine learning AI, so we understand more of the training of the model. And then on the Gen AI side, we're also spending a lot of time to figure out how to make use of it, and then develop applications, doing system design, all of these things too. So I think, to kind of say to start it, to understand theoretical side, plus also start working with it and using it too, right? On the ChatGPT, we can go to different ChatGPT and use it. Now you can also do it locally as well. So interact with it to get a feel of it too. I think that would be a good way to start,
In the predictive AI has been around a long time,
much
right?
longer
That's
time.
because we've been using statistical data models to make informed decisions. We've called it many things throughout the years, right? It's one was like knowledge base, rule systems,
right.
some of these other things.
Expert
systems, yes.
Yes.
And large language models have been around a long time too. Like, back in the old Oracle versions, you had to use all capital letters for your column names, which was large language.
Yeah.
And you'd model your data on it, so it was a large language model.
There we got a little audience participation. Good job. Yeah. I was wondering where he was going with that. I'm like, no, they haven't been around a long time. Multi-layered neural networks have been around for a long time, but not large language models. Another thing I found, like with ChatGPT and stuff, like you starting out using it is, like I just figured out the trick not long ago. Like have it teach you, so you can ask, like, I'm trying to understand this or whatever. What would be the way to write a prompt so that you can better answer me? And it's pretty good at that. It'll say, oh, you need to structure your prompt this way. Maybe give me some examples or this stuff. It actually does a pretty good job of like training you how to talk to it.
Yeah,
so
kind of like a recursive function, like you kind of loop back on itself. That's kind of cool. I'll have to try that.
Yeah, it's kind of like a recursive function, and it loops back on itself.
Oh, and just repeats over and over again. Huh? Kind of like a recursive function that just kind of calls back on itself.
I hadn't thought of that, but it is. Wow. Yeah.
How many layers deep before we exit?
Before we stop, like we're looking at each other like, just keep going, man. Just keep going.
Keep going.
So you mentioned like getting into AI. I mean, we're at Callibrity trying to build our AI practice, and it's the one of the hard things is deciding like how are we going to use this. And it's primarily generative AI. Like I think they figured out most of the other traditional AI flavors have been applied to business problems through the years for a long time, right? So that's kind of figured out. It's this generative AI thing that everybody's like, how do we use this to solve business problems? What are you seeing in the market as like some trends of, where folks are starting to kind of lean in and say, this is how this can truly help us solve business problems?
Yeah. I think for me, it's definitely not ready. There's still a lot of people are kind of getting not excited, more like a wow by, okay, you can ask it, and and we all have done it. Go to chatgpt.com and just say, oh, I don't know about this, and then have it answer you. Those things. I think those are still wowing people, but then if you kind of think of using that and trying to put together an airline reservation system, that won't work. We know it. Yeah. So, yeah, that's right. So even I have been trying to figure out how are companies using it, and then I've been involved with user group. We're talking about it, but I'm not finding a lot of actual situations in which companies are developing some tangible systems. But the thing is that I've seen is more about, okay, they're a vendor trying to come up with tools that are, well, now there are libraries, LangChain, for example, those things, right? Crew AI doing agent, multi-agentic. It's more like on the tools side, I think more. But at the same time, too, it's interestingly, I was just recently in Norway, in Oslo, for the conference, and one guy came and we had talked, because I did a workshop there, and then he was telling me he works for a company that process large amounts of data, but they generate different graphs and all that's kind of stuff for, like you can be taking a lot of data and basically have the bot, right, the AI itself go in LLM and figuring out all the data and then sort out everything and then generate all of these beautiful graphs or kind of diagrams to kind of show things. And that seems actually be working quite well. So if you think of it, it's more about, okay, I'm looking large amounts of data, image to, or text to image, I need to do those things. I think that would be a more safer bet to use generative AI approach, because you can be still, let's say huge tons of numbers you get from IoT devices you gather. Then you want to maybe see some things with those data, maybe like how many trucks, in my fleet is like doing some things, where do they go, that type of stuff. They can quickly figure things out for you and express it in diagram format. I think those things probably will see it a bit more as a real use cases, but like not quite yet, right, for doing an airline reservation or the kind of things where Callibrity is doing, maybe for financial institution trying to, doing something, you need some real data to predict something, let's say, that you need something more dealing with accuracy of your information. I think that's not ready yet, but doing more of the image. Yeah.
So we can go on the record as saying that developers are not going to be replaced by AI anytime soon.
Just yet, not just yet.
Not just yet.
I think the hallucinations is probably the biggest thing the industry is worried about right now, right? With the AI and hallucinate. It's like, I don't know, I just thought of this analogy. I'm an analogy person. So it's like talking to Ron Burgundy from Anchorman. Like when he says something to you, has the utmost confidence. Like when he explained what San Diego meant, he was saying it with the utmost confidence, and he believed every word he was saying, but it was completely wrong. Sometimes that's how it feels when you're dealing with these AI
I'm very important.
Yes.
I have many leather-bound books.
Yes.
And my apartment smells of rich mahogany.
Well done. I was teeing you up for that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem.
I only said that about 10 or 20 times last night.
Yeah, exactly.
Until I got it right. It is now committed to memory.
You got it now?
I think so.
Question from the audience.
So for companies who want to jump on the AI bandwagon and they feel like it can help them out, but they have no clue how to get started, what do you tell them?
Call Callibrity.
Call Callibrity.
Yeah, that's right. I like
that.
that. Call Callibrity.
Yeah.
Yes, we have the best solution, I think. I think, right? I think we, first of all, we need to figure out the kind of problem we want to be able to solve. Actually, one thing, too, is that James gave me idea, because it's from our financial officer, talking about, okay, we need to process all these invoice every month. And then from the invoice, right now we're manually looking through and sort through and look for specific types of data inside each invoice. So those kind of things. So first of all, I'd say, for a company to figure out what areas we need more, help in terms of reducing the redundancy of human beings having to intervene and sort out, get data. Maybe those kind of projects. And once you identify, then you can kind of look at all the tooling to see how it can, we can kind of leverage on GenAI to do it. So let's say one thing, right, with GenAI, to me, it's like, it's like we're shifting to the kind of programming that we need to do. Let's say traditional programming, we need to process data. We have to exactly know what types of data comes in. We need to process, transform, doing all these things. But now we can maybe use GenAI to say, okay, I don't care what data it is. Here it is, a file, this invoice. Go figure it out for me, like from the data. Figure out, I need to look for certain types of invoice for this category of spending. I'm just using an example. Go figure out for me. those kind of things is what we can leverage it on, rather than us having had to explicitly program some things to do it. I see that as a possibility of working with it. Now, another kind of solution, as I'm also learning too, as I'm talking about this, is that I'm reminded too, let's say, of some big companies, right? Big type of companies like Microsoft, they have Copilot, and within Copilot, they have all these document processing studio doing this and that, all of these things, and they are purposely built for processing certain types of document, for example. Then you can also use that kind of like higher level, I guess, product, kind of cookie cutter type of product, less interesting for the programmers, but maybe more useful for business end users. You can use those things and leverage on those, and then maybe then in some company environment, I'm already a Microsoft user, then I can leverage on this particular feature of the whole platform set I can use for processing documents, something like that. And so I think, I hope I answer your question, but I think that's also another way of like solving end user type of problem using kind of this kind of big company platform product. So
I think another thing too about using the tools that are out there is, like you were saying, learn to use the prompts. And I think one of the things that from the Agile and Beyond conference that we were at a couple months ago, AI was a big topic there. And one of the things was it's a very powerful tool, but you need to know how to use it. And I think a lot of discovery needs to be involved in how can I use this, properly to enhance my processes or my generation of certain things. You want to break it for ship it or skip it?
Ship or skip, everybody we gotta tell us if you ship or skip.
So the first thing, let's go with something in the Java world. Let's talk about Spring Boot.
I think Spring Boot, it's just in general, right? We're talking about.
Sure.
Yeah, ship it. It's kind of enough usages everywhere. Ship it. Yeah.
You gonna be the contrarian on this one?
No. I like Spring Boot.
I like Spring Boot. That wasn't a real controversial thing to throw out there. Was this just letting her warm up or what? She's a Java freaking champion.
I know. Well, I wanted to hear from the champion.
The champion. She's got the ship. The championship. You know what I mean?
Oh, no.
Did you get a belt with that?
Did they give you like a big wressling championship
Not
belt
really.
or something? That would be cool.
Even like a rodeo buckle or something?
that would be nice.
I got my Java belt buckle.
All right, so that was a warm up question.
Yeah, that was the warm. That was the
Oops,
softball.
now it's
Okay.
okay.
What about aspects, like aspect-oriented
Oh, that's a
programming in
word.
Java? What do we think these days?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, contain yourself over there, Aaron.
I guess skip it.
Skip it?
Yeah,
Why?
I don't use it.
I already
No,
do
I'm
skip
just
it.
kidding. But it's, I remember, it was being talked about, right, earlier, maybe 10 years ago, something.
Right.
But I don't know, maybe I think because I also haven't been using it, or kind of no opportunities to use it, I don't see it as something necessary, I suppose. Yeah. You probably can tell me more about that. So
I don't know if it really is used as much anymore. Maybe the frameworks themselves use it, but I know I haven't. Unless you're like, I think they use aspects for things like the transactional annotation processing and that sort of stuff. They do weave them in with aspects, but you just don't know about it anymore. So some of that's kind of behind the scenes and plumbing, maybe. I don't know, but yeah, I haven't used like myself aspects directly in many years for sure.
You are so lucky.
Am I?
Yes.
Okay.
So I've lived aspects nightmares. There are specific use cases where it's really useful. Annotations is a good example, and I think you're right. I think that's probably woven in with aspects. Method logging is another one. So if you wanted entry and exit logs to your methods, aspects work really well there. But in general, if something is breaking in your application and you don't know why, check your aspects, because that's usually where it's going to break down, and you're going to have spend a week or two trying to figure out why. So for me, I guess it's more of on the fence. If you have one of those special use cases where you need something integrated across the board, and it's exactly the same code everywhere, yeah, go ahead, use it. But those use cases are so rare that for me, it's mostly a skip it.
Yeah.
You know, there's probably a tool that's already doing it somewhere.
That's what I was gonna say. Probably debugging may be hard. I mean, if things work fine, right?
really,
Hidden is
really
fine.
hard.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Almost impossible.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the use cases where we used to reach for aspects, I think they're just falling back on dynamic proxies most of the time for that stuff anyway, right? Wrapping methods with those dynamic proxies at runtime, and it does a good enough job where you don't need to go crazy with load time weaving and all that stuff.
I used to always say this was somebody's doctoral thesis, code submission
Yeah.
for computer science and not meant for reality. All right, let's switch to an AI one. Building your own LLMs. So that's large language models.
Was that the uppercase thing, or
Yeah.
are these the real ones?
No, the real ones.
Okay.
Not the database ones. We're gonna update to 2024 LLMs.
Skip it.
Skip building your own.
Skip
Why is
building
that?
your own. First, it's very expensive. We know training models are not easy. It uses a lot of GPUs, and so you probably don't want that. And also now you can actually use like RAG, for example, to augment what's missing in a general purpose LLMs which are all out there now. ChatGPT. And Anthropic has their own, and all these Mistral, Llama 3, for example. So you can use RAG to supplement that too. Otherwise, it's, as such, right? LLMs are, like all the generative AI, they are very expensive, and from a sustainability point of view, it's expensive. You need to train it. Nobody even thought of the fact that your data center have to work harder to be able to produce these models, and inferencing too, likewise, too, is not cheap too. So I mean, as much as ChatGPT is fancy and everything, I don't think at this point, there are a lot of, there have been efforts to try to reduce the carbon footprint over these things, but it's still going to take some time. So not training your LLM for sure, not do that. So it sounds fancy. You train your own and adjust all the parameters, but it's not very practical.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so either. The only thing I could think of is if you're doing like a Gen AI that is like something that somebody hasn't done yet. But even at that, I would think you'd still want to leverage someone else's LLM for that. So
I agree.
I'm a skip it on that.
You're a skip it on. I don't think I'd ever want to unless you're working at a place that you're doing research and you have a lot of money to burn. No, I don't think I'd be doing full, training of my foundational model. But like doing training on top of it and fine tuning those models, maybe that can still get a little expensive. But I would go for that. But you're right. Like with retrieval augmented generation these days, you can provide enough context and give some 1-shot or 2-shot example of here's what I'm thinking, and it can figure things out pretty darn well. So I'd rather go that route to start.
All right, you want to throw one more out there? Maybe we get one from the audience?
Yeah, let's get
yeah.
the audience got any ideas for topics so we could
The
do
ship it or skip
skip
it? I don't think your idea's
The audience?
Audience? Hello?
Hello? We're
thinking.
We're thinking? Oh, cucumber. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Cucumber. What do you think about that? Ship it or skip it?
Like more testing, right? Testing
Yeah,
to
BDD,
BDD thing.
Behavior-driven development.
Yeah,
design,
that's right.
whatever.
Yeah, cucumber. That was another one too. I worked on not cucumber, but it's
Easy.
anyway.
J Dave or something. J Behave or
J
something.
Behave, that's
Yeah.
right. That's what I use. Yeah, I remember
there
that.
was a few,
Yeah.
there was something with the name Dave in there, I thought, at one point, too. I don't
Yeah,
know. Anyway.
that's right. Yeah, but okay, Cucumber. I have to say I haven't worked with Cucumber, but I understand it is becoming quite popular. But otherwise, too, before that, I worked JBehave, those things. Yeah, I think it's, I don't know what to say. I haven't been working so much with testing. I think I'm more neutral. Yeah, like you can use it if it's, kind of in your environment you have already set up. But if it's not, then it may not be necessary, is what I'm thinking. Maybe we can leverage on AI-assisted tools to do all the testing, and maybe, right? So then you don't need to actually use this tool. I'm just kind of thinking.
I've heard of that use case before, of having AI analyze your code and
Yeah,
suggest
and
testing
then
paths.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I've got a soft spot for testing.
Yeah,
I-
that's right.
When I'm coding,
It's right between
Yeah.
here.
I know. Yeah. When I'm coding, I do have one of the Copilot or one of the things turned on in my IDE, and it is really nice. If I write the production code, and then as I'm writing tests, it will generate this is the test you need to write, and I find myself spending a lot less time writing my test cases now with a little bit of AI assistance, because it kind of sees the production code and it knows, you've got an edge case here, and you've got it kind of knows it can help you.
Some
create
of us
those.
write our tests before we code.
Yeah, well,
Oh, that's right.
how is the AI going to know what I'm
Test-driven.
testing if I don't write that first?
Yeah.
Write a better prompt. So for me, Cucumber is one of those things where it depends on where in the stack you're developing. If you're structured horizontally to where you only have back-end code and you are on the hook to demo something, I think that Cucumber gives you a good way of verifying that your story, the way that project owners are expecting it, is passing to the specs that they've laid out. And it puts it in plain English instead of having to show Postman or code, behind the scenes stuff. You can have something that is in plain English. You can see here's the values that we pass through it, and here are our results, and and this is the story the way you expected to see it. And I think it presents for a little bit better of a demo of those backend systems that don't have a UI in front of them. If you have a UI, I don't think so. I mean, you can visually test very easily in a UI, and it's probably less effective to have a heavy testing system like Cucumber in place, because you do end up writing a lot more code when you're using Cucumber on top of your unit testing.
I don't know. I'm kind of a skip it guy on BDD. I haven't really, at least from the selling point was, business people can write the test because it's in English, right? And of course, they can't do it by
We can
themselves.
skip that. That's never
let's
gonna
skip that
happen.
part.
Yeah.
Now, what I will say, and I think we talk about this because we cover BDD in our training module, but the one thing that it can be really good at is when you set up your test cases where it's written in such a way that it involves a table with the examples below it, setting up the structure and kind of how to do it, and then underneath it with the table, because business people love spreadsheets. They can generate cases and cases and cases that you would put in there, and you get all those basically tests for free. So it's just cranking through that list of examples. That I think is beneficial, and I do think business folks, I'm using air quotations, business folks would absolutely embrace that. But as far as all the business folks are just going to sit down and start writing out this gherkin files, they're not going to do that. That's never in the history of ever been done that I've seen.
Nope.
In my experience.
Well, I did do it when I was a business owner, but
yeah, but you're different.
But I came from development,
Yeah,
so I was different. I was that rare zebra, right, with white stripes.
I actually remember that one TDD thing I used to use, probably very old. It's called Fitness.
Yeah,
Have you heard of? Yeah, okay.
That was.
Also, I remember. Yeah.
We had one test suite that was written in Fitness that was amazing, and it was for citation generation. So like in English, when you put all your citations in for the different resources that you use, it had all the formats and all the different types of citations, and it would test every permutation through this generator, and it was a beautiful thing.
I've got one other thought for Skip It or Ship It, which is very related to what you guys are talking about. What do you think of generative AI for creating test data, especially like nicely anonymized test data to give you a decent sized data set to test with?
Great question. And I was going to say, yes, in fact, one of the things I'm actually asking some of our bench folks, if they can have time, right, is basically making use of this technique called named entity recognition. And it's essentially a technique within like natural language processing that you could like, again, as the name implied, is name entity recognizing your data and being able to apply that technique and mask sensitive data in your, for testing purpose, especially at banks. You want to use real data, but you want to make sure all the secure, all the data, privacy data not expose all of these things. So yeah, and I think it is actually would be a very good usage too for GenAI and NLP, this type of usages too. But I think it's also, I'm trying to figure out too if there are actually tools out there that are making use of this technique. But here in Callibrity, I'm already asking some people to help us look into it. So yeah.
So you're a Ship It for that?
Yeah, this one is Ship It. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you were asking.
I like that idea.
Yeah, I like that.
It's a huge problem. Test data management.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
I actually worked on something that did statistical analysis on chip test results, and we had to try and model normal distributions and then anomalous data distributions so that we could test whether our software was working, because it was supposed to detect these things. And man, yeah, if we would have been able to generate those things with an AI, give me a normal distribution with one positive outlier, that would have been amazing. It would have made my job so much easier.
They might not have even needed you.
Maybe. I don't know. They were idiot proofing their software, and I was the biggest idiot, so I was in charge of QA. So
Tough crowd.
Yeah, I guess so.
What do you think about the new OpenAI 01 model thing? I haven't really had a chance to mess with it much.
I haven't played around, but I think it's better in terms of the reasoning part. It is that's what its strength is. It's still in preview right now. Okay. Yeah, I took a quick look. I haven't used it yet. But I think also too, there's another branch right within this AI thing. It's called AGI. Artificial general intelligence. That is, I wonder too. I've been wondering if it's that O1 Mini is kind of moving towards that, the general intelligence. You're actually really training your bot to have actually general intelligence. Yeah, as opposed to more artificial. I think in that sense. So, yeah. I haven't used it, but I'd like to try.
Meaning it's more well-rounded, like it went to college and learned humanities and stuff like that?
Yes. Something, general intelligence, yeah.
So it can win Jeopardy.
Yeah, something like that.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
I thought that already happened.
Yeah, they already did that.
Wasn't that Newton?
Ken Jennings beat it. Nice. Okay, so you think it's going to be an interesting step towards that? Okay. All right. It seems like it.
Well, good. Now I don't have to get general intelligence because I can use AI for it.
Nice.
All right. All right. Let's go to our lightning round.
It's time for the lightning round. Rapid fire, don't slow down. Answer quick and make it count. In this game, there's no way out. It's time for the lightning round.
All right, so the way our lightning round works, we're going to ask you a series of questions unrelated to technology in most cases. But short answers, we're not looking for, any explanation. There's no right or wrong answer for these. These are mostly based on your personal opinion and feelings. So, what age do you want to retire?
Well, I'd say I like to retire sooner than later. However, even if I retire, I still like to do things, I think. Yeah, but just maybe less restricted with a company. You need to follow all these rules kind of thing. But really, I'm passionate about doing something, so I'm going to continue, right? Say, I can be a consultant working on some things that I like to work on type. But otherwise, too, I'd like to retire sooner.
All right. These are like really you have to search deep within yourself to answer these type of questions that we give you. All right. Sweet, salty, or sour?
So tough. Oh my gosh. Sweet.
Sweet. All right. What do you got, Ron?
Let's go with, if you could travel back in time, what period would you go to?
Maybe the 80s, maybe. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been there. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
Yeah,
Good
I
times,
think
good
80s
times.
is good. Yeah.
I like the 80s.
Yeah, 80s, right? Yeah, that's right.
I miss the 80s.
I miss them right now for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. If you could eliminate one thing from your daily routine, what would it be and why?
I don't know. Really don't know.
I'd say my commute.
Sometimes.
You know.
Oh
that
yeah,
would be-
well that well, and I hardly commute now, right?
That's
Because
true.
it's
Nobody commutes,
I'm
So I've already
remote,
done
yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Already remote.
that's right. Well, but it's true. If I have to daily going into work, yeah, commute would be good. Yeah. But sometimes I think of, I don't have enough time in a day. Sometimes I wonder, if I actually don't need to sleep, then I can have more time. That's kind of a weird thing to think of. Although when I'm sleeping, then I enjoy sleeping too. So yeah. But if
Yeah.
I'm keep going, like I want to just keep going and not have to be tired and yeah, it's just too many things to do.
If you had to sing karaoke right now, what song would you choose?
Oh my gosh.
You don't have to. Let's be clear. We're
Yeah,
not gonna
I
ask
don't
for
have
you
to sing,
But
but
if
what
you can choose
song?
what song, if you had to sing karaoke, what song would that be? And we won't ask you to do it.
Oh my gosh, it's just sometimes things are slip my mind. The other day I was just singing some songs. I think going back to the 70s, 80s, like America, that band. I actually like those songs too. Yeah. I like Ventura Highway and things like. I'm like old, so but anyway, I like that kind of rustic kind of. Yeah.
LA or New York? There's an easy one for
New
you.
York.
Good choice.
I think we're wrapped up.
We've got enough content here.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
think we have plenty of content.
The audience is all nodding.
Yeah, our audience is like, yeah, you guys are done.
Riveted, as they said. No.
So I'd like to thank our studio audience, our full production team that was here. There's no longer.
Yes,
There's
yeah.
one left. Our lovely guest, Mary,
Thank you.
in my beautiful and now dry co-host,
Yes.
James Carmen.
It is good to be together in the same room to do the podcast.
Yeah,
This
it is.
fun.
It's been fun.
Yeah.
Good times. Good times.
times.
All right, so this has been the / where we lean into the future of IT. Subscribe for your latest podcast episodes from us and keep on listening.